Hello, gods and goddesses and divine beings of all kinds. My name is Amber Indigo and welcome to my channel. So I actually started this channel a few years ago, not long after I started reading tarot professionally, but the timing really wasn't right. I found it hard at the time to make myself make videos, so it kind of has just been sitting here for a few years. But I feel called to come back and read cards for you guys. I'm pretty excited about that. I'm going to post my first reading video. I may record it tonight. We'll see, but soon. But I wanted to make this first video just to kind of tell you guys a little bit about myself, my journey, and like kind of who I am, how I got to where I'm at, why I'm how I am, just stuff, you know, like skim over my life. I want to do this because although I'm an open book, you can ask me anything. I'll tell you. There's nothing that I'm afraid to talk about, no shame. So everything I'm going to say has been said at some point, but I've never actually put it in like chronological order and told it all the way through. So that's what this first video is actually going to be about. So if you're like, bitch, I don't care about your life or who you are, I just want to hear you read cards, that's totally fine. That's totally fair. You can click off this video and go check out one of my tarot videos. But for, you know, anybody who's curious, who wants to know, you know, a little bit about who's actually reading for them, or, you know, my friends even that have never heard this whole story, I'm going to tell it. I even made notes. Chicken scratch notes, long notes, because I'm not big on doctors' diagnoses of pretty much anything. I don't put a whole lot of faith in it. But if ADD or ADHD really is a thing, then I have it like probably worse than any human I've ever met. But my parents wouldn't medicate me as a child, so like my brain developed how it developed. So I've been medicated as an adult, but it's like it doesn't really fucking help. So I'm making notes just to make our lives easier and I don't go off on a tangent because that happens a lot. If you've watched my live tarot videos, it's embarrassing. Okay, so this is backwards. Again, my name is Amber. I was born Amber Fern Treese. No, Indigo is not my middle name. Shocker. Amber Fern Treese on May 14th, 1985 in a little bitty hospital in a little bitty town. It is now torn down. It had been abandoned and people were doing drugs in it. So the hospital I was born in is no longer there because I'm a little bit old. I am 38 years old. 38 years young, I'd say, which is wild, you know, to think that that's even possible. I have lived a lot of lifetimes in my life, one lifetime, many deaths and rebirths, and I've been many different people. But crazy when I say I'm 38, it's like 2 years from 40, which is not old, but crazy. So I am a Taurus sun as far as astrology goes. Taurus sun. That's where I get my chill and my stubbornness. Scorpio rising. I mean, that speaks for itself. It just is. And then I'm an Aries moon, Venus, and Black moon Lilith. So lots of Aries. My sister is an Aries sun, so. And with all three, I resonate with all three of them almost equally. I'd say possibly the Scorpio rising the most. But that's that. So my parents, my mom, Lisa, and my dad, Ted. My mom was 27 when I was born. My dad was 43. There was roughly 16, 17 years age difference between them. My dad looked very young for his age, and he liked younger women, and they kind of hit it off, you know. I don't think my parents were ever actually really in love. I think that, I don't know if my dad was capable of it. I don't know if he was a full-on sociopath, because I do believe he loved me and my sister, but I think we may be the only humans he ever loved. So I don't think he ever truly loved my mom or his ex-wife or any woman he'd ever dated. It's just how he was. So, they met. This is probably circa, I don't know, 1983, 84. And, my mom wanted a baby, basically. She was 27, and back in the 80s, you know, 27, you're starting to get up there, which she didn't know yet. She was going to go through menopause at 40. That's what maybe I have to look forward to. So it's a good thing she did. She had 2 babies in time. But she wanted a baby more than anything in the world. And my dad was willing. She asked one day, she said, sitting on the toilet, I believe, while he was in the bathroom, and said, hey, I really want to have a baby. Can I have a baby? And my dad, being my dad, just like, sure. So I was conceived and I was born. My parents got married. Well, my mom was pregnant with me, or in her early stages. You can't tell really in the wedding photos, but I was in there. She also suggested that after she got pregnant, she's like, well, now that I'm pregnant, should we get married? So they got married. And they stayed married for, well, 12 years, until I was 12 years old. So, those are my parents. My mom is, my dad passed. He had prostate cancer, spread to bone cancer. He passed about 7 years ago. He was in his mid-late 70s. So, I mean, he'd lived a good life, and he'd lived with that cancer for a long time. It is sad, but I have a special relationship with death. I believe he's around. In fact, I know he is. I communicate with him sometimes, and he comes to me through different, like, synchronicities and just downloads. So that's pretty cool. My mom is still around. She's the love of my life. She truly is. We're actually right at this moment. It's rare. We are not speaking because we got into a pretty big fight, which doesn't happen often anymore. But so yeah, she's around, and she's a huge part of my life. So when I was a kid, I was really smart, and that's not me tooting my own horn. It just is, you know, it was just a thing. It was a big part of my childhood. I started speaking at 9 months. I started talking. By the time I was 1 or 1.5 at the latest, I was speaking sentences. I could communicate in sentences, and and I over enunciated my words, so I sound like I had a super southern accent. Like the Pledge of Allegiance was, I pledge allegiance to the flag. It was really funny. I have VHS tapes of that. So yeah, I was a very old little thing. I always wanted to be grown. I wanted to be mature. I remember winning my first bra and panty set at 5. My mom said I started to apply lipstick at age 2, and she would joke that I could apply lipstick at age 2 better than she could. I liked to carry a purse. In fact, my mom said I took my purse and my lipstick to my first day of kindergarten. When I was 3, 4, I was in daycare. And I have pictures of this, and I also have actual memories of it, and my mom remembers it. But I went to a daycare, and there was this boy named Dustin, and he was a year older than me. So I think I was 3 to begin with, so he was 4. He was a lot taller than me. I've always been really small. I'm only 5'1" now, like grown. But he was like a full head taller than me, and there I was, super blonde, and he has like dark hair. It was just cute and funny. But I was so in love with him. I was going to marry him, okay? I was sure of it. So I guess one day at daycare, he tells me he can't marry me because he has 2 other girlfriends also. Which, you know, when you're 4 or 5 is, you know, whatever, it's okay. But I was devastated. Like, my mom said I cried for 3 days. And that she had to console me because I kept saying, but Mom, I'll never find another man like Dustin. We're talking 3, 4 years old. I have a picture of my 4th birthday party at the 1989 style McDonald's, where I wore a wedding dress that my grandma had made for me. So if this gives you any indication of what kind of child I was very, fantasy was a big thing. I used to say I would think in poetry, because if I would sit there back before electronics and all of that, even cell phones and stuff, you know, you had your imaginations. Oh, there's a kitten. I would think in poetry. Like, it was weird. And I was also really good at writing. Now, math, chemistry, I'm not saying I'm a genius by any means. I definitely have my weak points, but you know, when it came to my words, I was really, really good with it. But you know, and it started early. You know, it always came easy. Words, grammar, punctuation, all of that, writing. So I used to do that a lot, and I haven't written in a really long time, not in years and years and years, and it used to just pour out of me. So I'm curious if I started to do it again, if I would get that back. So, you know, hey kitty, stop it. So this kitten's got my earbuds. So I was a straight A student. I didn't really have to try hard in school, at least not when I was young. You know, I never really had to bring a book home. I made straight A's. And so because I started to talk very young, I was very old for my age. And, you know, adults tend to be impressed by that, especially the younger the kid. And then you know, I was making perfect grades. They had me in the gifted program. So like my parents, my grandparents, the elders in my family, obviously they were proud of that. You know, they were proud, you know, that I was doing these things and so well. So that kind of fed into it. So I had the adults in my life who were encouraging me, as any, you know, good parent, grandparent, or whatever would do. If you're good at something, you know, encourage them to do it. And yeah, so I was. But then I think I kind of also put the expectation on myself of like, I have to be a certain way. I have to be perfect. It was kind of like, it became this mentality of show up perfect or don't bother showing up at all. That's kind of the mentality I had. And there were people close in my life that, you know, at the time they didn't realize either. It's not their fault. Like, we're all human. We're all, you know, wounded. We all make mistakes. But it was put very much on me, this emphasis on being something, you know, in particular. And usually it was several things. It was to be the smartest, to be the prettiest, to be the most popular, to be the most liked by the boys, to be the best cheerleader, the best whatever singer in the plays, musical theater. You know, it was a lot of pressure to be the best. And I think that, you know, the grown-ups maybe instilled that in me a little bit just by, you know, really, I won't say they pushed me. I mean, maybe they did at some points, but they definitely encouraged me. And I also put it on myself that, like, okay, if I have to be the best. And I was used to being good at things. Now, the things I wasn't good at, and there's definitely things I wasn't good at. I mean, I'm talking about things I excelled in. I just didn't do those things. Like, all my friends played softball, basketball since like like kindergarten. They started playing the sports. I wasn't a sports person really. And so I didn't do that. And so all of them and like my group of friends, they all played the same sports and I didn't. I was like very much the odd duck, like all through school until high school when I kind of dispersed the group. But yeah, I was very different. I did, let's see, what did I do? I did swim team. I did gymnastics. I started that when I was 2 until I was 14 or 15. So roughly 12 years being a gymnast. I think I did dance for 1 year and maybe like baton for a year until my teacher moved away. But I was a cheerleader all throughout school. I went to a little teeny tiny school. So we didn't have like a dance team, a drill team. We didn't have anything like that. The closest thing we had to that was cheerleading. And because I could tumble and stuff, and I was just good, I was good with controlling my own body, I was good at cheerleading. Anything, swimming. I did competitive swimming. I excelled at that, you know. Let's see, gymnastics, dance, what other stuff? Well, now I do aerial hoop. So I do I'm an aerial hoop performer, aerialist. And if you don't know what that is, it's also called a lyra, and it's a big metal hoop, and it's suspended from something, you know, either like a rig or a ceiling. And it's like, you think circus, it spins around and you do flips around it. And yes, I'm 38 years old and I do that. Don't ask me why, I just do the things that I do. But I was good at that. And so those are the things that I did do. And you know, and all of this that I was doing when I was successful, you know, it fed my ego. And as a kid, like when you're a baby, you don't have an ego. And then around age 7, you start to kind of come into your ego, like into yourself. This is me. This is mine. This is how I'm separate from these people. You know, we're babies. We don't know that. And so, anyway, this cat's over here. I'm losing my train of thought. Yeah, so let's just go back to my, let's see. So, yeah, so in 8th grade, like we had an 8th grade homecoming, which was weird. But instead of having like 4 queen candidates, like most homecoming courts, we had like 12 or 13, which is really strange. But it was a little tiny podunk school, so whatever, you know. So we had a homecoming court with like 12 or 13 girls. I wanted to be on the court. You know, I was not particularly like expecting to win or like interested in it. I mean, yeah, it'd be great, but like, whatever. So we did that, and lo and behold, I won it. Not because I was the coolest or like, you know, whatever, like the coolest, most popular girl. Maybe I was the most popular, but it was only because I was kind. I was really kind to people. Like, I never stopped treating people differently when we got older and, you know, social dynamics changed. And I thought that was fucked up. So I never did that. I kept my friends. So, yeah, I was good in school academically. I was a teacher's pet. I never got in trouble. 2 detentions my whole school life. And I was in 3rd and 6th grade, both by the same teacher who started out teaching 3rd and started teaching 6th, and they were both for dumb reasons. So I didn't get in trouble. I was a good kid. I was expected to be. I was proud of it. I was proud of my accomplishments. Oh, that's what I was saying before. All of this is kind of feeding my ego. You know, it's giving me confidence, which is not a bad thing as a kid. You know, and it's not a bad thing whenever the people around you, when you do a good job, they let you know you're doing a good job. I think that's great. But it did kind of play into this, oh, well, people love me when I'm this way, when I do these things. And so it just kind of fueled this, like, what I didn't realize at the time was like a monster in me. So, of this image obsessed having to be perfect all of the time. And I still fight it. I've done a lot of undoing, but, you know, when it happens as a child, it's a lifetime a lot of times. So, okay, so I was in a really bad accident when I was 10, with both my great-grandparents, my great-aunt. Both my great-grandparents died in that accident. My great-aunt, I had to get the jaws of life to get her out, had a ton of broken bones, spent months in the hospital. I was in the back seat sleeping, no seatbelt on. We were driving to Arkansas in the mountains, and we got hit head-on by a semi, and it drug us down the mountain. Well, I had no broken bones. The only thing I had was soft tissue damage on my face. I had 2 black eyes, my lip was swollen up into my nose. Cat, get away. Sorry. So I didn't know this until I turned 16 and my mom set me down and told me, but she said when you turn 18, you're going to have some money. Quit, go. And so when I turned 18, I got $50,000. So, you know, now in 2023, that's not a ton of money, but in 2003, 20 years ago, it was a decent chunk. And, you know, who was a really pretty responsible kid. Oh, also, I should have graduated a year early. I got all my credits done, so I could graduate my junior year. We went through 3 principals in 4 years, and the principal decided the year I would have been able to graduate early that I couldn't, that nobody could. So I had to go my senior year for a bunch of BS. So when I turned 18 and I got this money, my mom had told me you should probably invest it. And, you know, I thought she was probably right. You should buy a house, you know, something that will have value and hold its value. I was like, yeah, great idea. Because my mom was really strict. And I had, you know, an earlier curfew than all my friends. And she told me as long as I lived at home, I was going to have that curfew. So I was like, I'm getting out of here. So we looked around at several houses in surrounding towns. Most of them would have taken all my money, you know, if I could afford it. And then a realtor said, I think we found one. I think it could be the one. I told my mom this. But it's getting ready to list. It hasn't quite listed yet. It's probably going to go really fast. It was a repoed home. It was the next town over from where I grew up. It was like Well, it's actually, I still live here now. But, it was a repoed home. The guy passed away, and it was 4 bedrooms, 2 bathroom, 1.5 story house for $21,000. Yeah. So I took that 50 grand. My 18th birthday was on a school day. My birthday was always at the end of the year in May. So I left school the day I turned 18 to go close on my house. And then that night, because I was 18, I could officially live on my own, whatever. And I had been so sheltered. Me and my best friend got sleeping bags. I had no flooring or anything in the house yet. Like, I just bought it. There's like the wood down, and we got our sleeping bags and slept upstairs on the floor just because we could. So, you know, that was fun. You know, I was 18. So, like, I had people over. I would have parties. We had painting parties where everybody get drunk. It was crazy. And then one fateful day, I was 18, only a couple months after I moved in and left my parents' house. I had people over, like I did a lot. I had 2 roommates too when I first moved in here. One of my friends had gone to my school, was a senior when I was a freshman, but he was like a cool guy. He brought a friend in with him. And the guy looked familiar, but not familiar, but he was really hot. So I was like, who is that? Turns out I did know him. I knew his name. A tiny area, mind you. And he was, not only was he really hot and gave off like a really like cool guy vibe, but he was known for that. So like, he was like the guy every guy wanted to be or be like or be friends with. That nobody disrespected. Everybody kind of like feared him or thought he was like a god. And then all of the girls wanted to be with him. So then naturally, right, as someone who likes to win at things I can win at, and, you know, it's kind of fed into my ego. I was a little bit of an egomaniac at that point, you know? I was young. You know, I went after that guy for all the wrong reasons, but I was like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to make him mine. So I did that. I married him. Met him when I was 18, got married a month after my 19th birthday. And I was married until I was 22. But lo and behold, this man turned out to be incredibly abusive, like in every sense of the word. I'm talking like physically, emotionally, financially. He would control all the finances. He was, I don't use the word narcissist lightly, but he was, and possibly sociopathic. Like and I'd never seen that. I had never seen violence like in my family. My parents fought, yeah, but I'd never seen, you know, anybody put their hands on someone else. And so the first time he pushed me down, I couldn't breathe because I was like, what the hell is happening? But I married him, and I was Christian at the time, and Christians don't believe in divorce. So I was like, oh, well, I can't divorce him, you know, and I made my bed and I just got to lay in it. No, you know, I just got to put up with the decision that I made. And, you know, I thought that all the time, and we were in church all the time. You know, it was kind of, it's sickening now, but we'd be at church and, you know, they have the praise and worship where you stand up and some people like raise their hands up, and my husband at the time, now ex-husband, would be up there with his like eyes closed, his arms raised, and I just remember looking at him like, how? So we went to marriage counseling, and there was a pastor. The pastor was a marriage counselor, and looking back, you know, knowing what I know now, I probably never would have like let that guy counsel us. I don't feel like he's all that experienced and whatever. But I remember my ex-husband crying because he admitted what he'd done to me. He couldn't really deny it. And I couldn't talk to anyone about it because I married him. I had made my bed. I had to lay in it. And there's no way I could tell everybody, especially my family, that he was abusive, because if I did that, then well, first of all, I'd have to admit that I was wrong when everybody said I was too young to get married. And I was like, oh, no. And then also, you know, I don't know. I just felt like I had to stay. So we would be in these marriage counseling sessions, and he would be crying. And his excuse or his reasoning for doing the crazy things that he did As in, I'm not going to go into it a lot, but he's pushed me down. He's pinned me down. We have duked it out. He has punched or kicked holes in every single door in my house. I was driving one time. He punched the side of my head and knocked it off the window. So just so you have an idea, that's kind of how he was. But he was crying, saying that he blacks out and he couldn't control it. It was out of his control. He was, when it came to his anger and putting his hands on me, he had no control over it. And I didn't know what to believe. I didn't know if, I was young. I was 19. You know, I maybe 20 by then, but I don't think so. I think I was 19 still. And it was like, do people black out like that? Do people get that angry that they like really don't know what they do? Now, I think it probably is possible, but I think it's probably because whatever you're experiencing is so traumatic that your brain blocks it out. Like when I was in that bad accident, I don't remember it happening. I don't remember it till my mom was holding me on the side of the road. But as far as when you get angry, you know, there's a point where you have, it's like a decision point. You know, you, from experience and just from being around people, like you can either get really angry and you can lose your shit, or, you know, you can, you know, take it back a notch. Do I think that some people are more easily triggered and blow up? Yes. But do I think that you have no control over it and have no idea what you're doing? No, I don't think that at all. No. But at the time I didn't know any better. And so I kind of like had to believe him, and I couldn't tell anybody except this marriage counselor who is a Christian, or I think he's actually Baptist, still Christian, minister. He of course wasn't going to try to tell us to get divorced. Of course he wasn't going to be like, bitch, you need to get out of there. This guy is bad news, obviously. Like, you're too young, too lots of things, you know? I'm not trying to like make myself sound conceited, but like, you don't deserve this. You know, he wasn't going to tell me that. So he sat there and listened to his bullshit, talking about how I couldn't help it. Ripped my scrubs for school. So anyway, while I was married and I was dealing, I was just coping, I went to cosmetology school because I was only 19. In order to be considered an adult and be able to get financial aid to help with school, you have to be considered an adult, which is either 24 years of age, have a child, or be married. I was 19, no children, and not married yet. So at the time that I was applying. So we moved up our wedding date like 6 months so I could get financial aid for school. So after we were married and stuff, you know, and I'm in the cosmetology school, he was in the Navy before, so he was going to school for administration of justice. So he was going to school and staying home other than his classes, while I was in cosmetology school 40 hours a week. It's like a whole freaking job. Well, here's another thing about him. He is not the smartest. And by not the smartest, I mean, he's really fucking stupid. And that's not nice, but like, really. So I did all of his homework. I wrote every single paper he ever turned in without ever attending a class or having any idea what was going on, really. You know, he's one of those douchebags that have that personality type that should never be a cop or correction officer, but that's exactly what he was trying to do. So anyway, for 4 years, I wrote these papers. And he ended up failing because he took Spanish 1 his first semester of college and Spanish 2 his very last semester of college. But he also had something on his record, so it was kind of all for nothing. But I was working at MasterCuts, and I hated it. It was awful place to work. It was conveyor belt hairstyling. I was new to it. It was actually my second job out of school, but he controlled our bank account. The internet was not what it is now, but there was online banking, and you could see what was being spent. And he would be at home, you know, because he didn't have to work, because he got the GI Bill and was going to school, and he would keep an eye on the bank account. So if I've been at work all day, 8+ hours a day, you know, at them all, and I spent like $5 on lunch, because I knew better than to spend a lot of money. I get home and he would ask me, like, what I spent $5 on. It was crazy. So this man was insane. So when I was 22, my mom was turning 50, and she decided that she wanted to go to Mexico for her birthday, and she wanted to take me. So I'm like, hell yeah, I want to go to Mexico. So we went for a week. That was the longest time I'd had away from my then husband. And I just was beside myself at how much more peaceful I felt. At how when I didn't have to worry about him, always constantly worried about how he's feeling, what he's thinking, what he's going to do. You know, I knew I couldn't go back and things be the same. So we were at the airport, me and my mom getting ready to leave to go back home. I was going back to my husband, And she said she looked over, and I do remember this vaguely, but she said I just was stone-faced, but that I had tears like streaming down my face, like just nonstop. And I'm not a crier. I honestly haven't cried in a decade, but maybe once. But she was like, "What is wrong with you?" And I spilled the beans. I told her everything. I told my mom. I knew if I told my mom, of all people, my mom's like 5 foot nothing, but she is a fucking firecracker. Don't fuck with my mom. I knew if I told my mom, that was it. She was not going to let me stay with him. Christian or not, she was Christian at the time too. So I went back, waited till my cousins are around who are old enough to be my parents, and they're big dudes. There's like 4 of them, and told them I wanted a divorce. And boy, was he mad. He was pissed. However, I got my divorce. In fact, I got simplified dissolution of marriage, which is where you go to the courthouse, pay $175 if you have no children or joint property, and the house was mine. It was in my name. They will let you get divorced. So the next morning, I met at the courthouse at 9 a.m. The judge was like, "You kids know you're not going to be married anymore, right?" I'm like, "Yep." So we parted ways, and we have not spoken since. I just saw him at my 10-year class reunion. I just had my 20-year one, so like 10 years ago at a bar randomly, and I had been drinking, and I never drink, but I was that night. And I didn't say much to him. I walked right out, but I did yell some profanities. About him being like a woman beating bitch or something like that. Who knows? So, yeah. So I went from being the golden child, being the, good at everything, popular, aesthetically pleasing, just golden child, the one that everybody loves, the teacher's favorite, I said homecoming queen. We didn't have a head cheerleader, but at camp they suggested one to be nominated. They picked me for that. I won my talent show my senior year. I was class president my junior year. And so I went from being that kid, making straight A's and all of that, having the highest IQ in my class at one point, to marrying this man, thinking that, oh, well, I'm obviously so smart, and it going to shit. And you'd be like, oh, fuck. Like, I have to admit I was wrong. Because I was. And there's no way around this. I'm not living with this the rest of my life. So that was kind of my first ego death. That was my first, wow. Okay, so the old me is dead. We've had to develop some coping skills. During my marriage, I did start taking Vicodin to cope. My ex-husband had some. And then his mom and stepdad had a shit ton. And nobody had addiction issues. They just fed them to me like Skittles. And I took them because they gave me energy and put me in a good mood. And I was a miserable bitch when I was married because I was stuck. So, anyway, after I told my mom, came back, divorced him, it was like the first time I was ever really free. I had really controlling parents. And when I say controlling, I mean, they weren't like abusive type controlling. They were overprotective. Now it would just be normal. But back then, I had the earliest curfew. I was not allowed to date. As in, I could have boyfriends in preschool, but I wasn't allowed to get in a guy's car, with him, to go on a date until I was 16 and old enough to drive a car myself. I don't know. It's my mom's weird rule, so. And she stuck to it until I turned 16. Although my 14-year-old sister got to do it immediately. But, wow, it was everything. But I had my first taste of freedom. I could do whatever I wanted. I was making my own money. I could spend it however I wanted. I had nobody, not my parents, not my ex-husband, nobody to tell me what I had to do. And so I did whatever the hell I fucking wanted to do. And, they say that what you want isn't always what you need. This is a perfect example because, yep, I did everything I wanted. I got everything I wanted, but it was far from what I needed. So, like I said, I was already taking Vicodin to cope. I liked how it made me feel. Well, I knew I had a lot of friends that sold them too, just that I knew. And so when I had control of my own money, I started buying them off my friends because I no longer have my ex-husband and his stash, which I haven't talked to him again. I was never talking to him again. It's a little, I wasn't that desperate. It wasn't like I was a drug addict, which I wasn't at the time, but it was the beginnings. So I started buying them off friends, and those things aren't cheap. They were cheaper back then in 2005, but they're still not cheap then. I remember one time being with my buddy who was selling me some, and he handed me the bottle, and the bottle had a bunch of little pills, and I'm like, what are these? And he's like, those are Oxycontin. I didn't know yet what that was. And he was like, oh, you should try one of those sometimes. He's like, but don't lose them. Those are $40 pills. I'm like, what the fuck? I don't ever want these. Even though I was buying enough Vicodin and taking enough, to be worth $40. It was dumb. But I had my own money. I had my freedom. I could do what I wanted. I could hang out with whoever I wanted. I had nobody like up my ass just constantly policing everything I do. So I did just that. I did whatever I wanted to do. And I started hanging out with this guy named Adam. First guy that I dated after my divorce, but it didn't start out as dating. We were just really good friends. He was legitimately a cool guy. He was ginger, so he was redheaded. I have this thing for like redheads and blondes. I don't know. Not always, but it's a thing. But he wasn't attractive. I did not find him physically attractive. But he had this swagger about him. He was confident, on the verge of cocky. But it's like he was kind of awkward looking. But he was just so cool. And he was so nice to me. And he liked me so much. And after that marriage, where I was basically told all the time I wasn't shit, because that's what narcissistic, abusive people do, I just really enjoyed his company. Plus, he was selling his best friend's mom's Oxycontin. So he was keeping the profit because he was a drug user. He did them a lot, but he wasn't addicted. He could stop. But he kept his profit, and he would do them, and he would use that to bribe me to come hang out with him sometimes, because I'm like a hermit. I don't hang out a lot. I definitely don't now. I didn't even then. But he knew if he offered that, I'd be like, okay, that's terrible, but it's true. So I would go hang out, and we would just kick it. He never tried anything until one day he asked me to go to a wedding, and we were sitting in the car waiting, and he grabs my hand. And I can remember freaking out inside, like, oh, fuck, oh, fuck, oh, fuck, oh, fuck. Because first of all, I don't really like this guy like that, but I love him as a friend, and in no way am I ready to be in another relationship. I am not healed. I just went through something extremely traumatic. I'm in no emotional state to entertain the idea of love or relationships. But I also was bored and had nothing better to do. So I said, okay, sure. And I literally said, just don't fall in love with me, because I'm in no place for that. I can't, we already hang out all the time, whatever, but I'm just letting you know, I have issues right now. So we were together for a couple years, until I finally had to end it, inevitably. And it was horrible. I remember leaving, I remember hearing the wailing. It sounded like somebody had just died, or like a deep grief. And I heard it from outside the house. I stayed that day because he had a funeral to go to, and I did not want to leave him and not go to the funeral. I went to the funeral, I held his hand through it, but then my stuff was already packed. He knew I was leaving, but there's that sound of just a heart being shattered. So that was that. But I knew I had to leave because he wasn't the one. So I did. And then, let's see. Oh, so then I met a guy named Terry. He was 9 years older than me. I was 23, so he was 32. I looked young for his age. He was a car guy. He was on steroids. Like, he was taking some college classes, lived in a little apartment nearby. Didn't do any drugs, drank occasionally. He was normal. He was like a freaking, he was a Chad. He was a Chad. I can't believe I ever dated that guy, honestly. It's the only guy like that I ever dated. But anyway, and he was a very much, I don't want to insult anybody, but he was kind of like a little bitch. My whole thing is I'm going to do whatever the hell I want to do. Whether it's drugs, whether it's stay out all night. Now, I didn't cheat, but I would stay out with my friends all night, and I wouldn't listen, and I didn't really care if you liked it or not. It was because I was so controlled that I was like, nobody's ever going to do that again. So it's like I wasn't even being considerate. And that's enough to drive anybody crazy. But this guy's 9 years older than me, and he's a car guy. He had this 350Z, which was a 6-speed. That's why I learned to drive a stick-on. And he would just let me, like, take his car, and, like, it was crazy. He started doing drugs when we were together. He got his car impounded, lost his car. He stopped taking college classes. But he, like, I remember he was, like, balding, and he was 9 years older than me, he was a grown man. And he would do this, like, pout thing, and it would make me so mad. I'm like, stop it. It's not cute. It's not funny. It's gross. So, that was that. And I tried, so he proposed to me a month in. Also, that's happened to me several times. It's like, no, So he gave me the ring. He kept trying to give it back, and I kept trying to give it back like 12 times. I tried to leave. I tried to break up with him. But here's what they did, him and Adam. I would break up with them, and then they might give it some time, they might not. But then they would use drugs to bribe me. And by then, I was hooked. I mean, I wasn't like doing anything IV, but like I was taking a lot of Vicodin. I was snorting Oxycontin, you know. I was pretty heavy on the opiates by then. And to the point where I would get dope sick without it. So whenever they would, you know, these exes of mine that like I didn't want to be with, but I didn't really have beef with either, they're bribing me with this stuff, I went. You know, I'm not proud of it, but I went. It's not, I didn't go to like have sex with them for it. Like that's something I wouldn't do. And they didn't ask me to. But they would use that just to get me to come around. And it would work. And a lot of times we would end up just back together, just hanging out and never leaving again. You know, very unhealthy. Nothing was real about it, but it's how it happened. And so finally I broke up with Terry for good. And, you know, that was very dramatic. He got him... Well, first of all, I was trying to leave, and he kept trying to throw his own cell phone into my garbage bag of clothes. As I was trying to walk out the door. He did that like 3 times. I'm like, dude, how are you gonna psycho call me if you're giving me your phone? Why are you doing this? Like, take your phone. So I leave, and then he gets himself stuck on the roof. He used his car to climb up, but he loves his car so much that he was afraid to get down because he might dent it. And he was trying to call me with my SUV to come get him off the roof. Why was he on the roof? I don't know. He was still in a fucking temper tantrum. So I break up with him. I've not talked to him since. From what I hear, he continued to do drugs. He lost a job, a serving job or cooking job at a restaurant because they caught him shooting up drugs in the bathroom. And there's one right before Terry. So, oh gosh. And Adam. This was actually the very first person I talked to, but it was very short. So it's my first love from high school. And in retrospect, the only person I've ever loved in my entire life, truly. And it's because I was 16 and innocent. But I decided I wanted to go to see him. I needed to see him again. It's the only man still to this day that I ever truly loved. I was innocent and pure until he cheated on me with 2 different girls, and I had to break up with him. But as soon as I got divorced, I wanted to see him. So I did. And as soon as I did, it's like, I probably looked like I'd seen a ghost because I had. He looked like a shell of himself. He had been on crack and heroin currently, all the time, very bad. He was skinny, pale, he smelled bad. But I still had such a place in my heart for him. Like, I didn't even care. Like, I was just so happy that he was around. And I ran away to St. Louis for, actually, I left Adam. So the first guy I was with, I left Adam to go run away to St. Louis. And I stayed there for maybe 2 months. And when I went up there, I had a friend from home whose aunt owned the biggest strip club in St. Louis. And his uncle ran it. And he's like, I can get you a waitressing job. I mean, he knew I wasn't going to fucking dance. So he's like, you know, if I was like, hell yeah, I'll waitress at a strip club, they probably make good money. So I go in, I apply, they give me the job. I waitress one night, I didn't make shit. And it was like 12 bottles for a glass bottle of water. It's stupid. Anyway, and they made me walk around in my underwear after they told me to wear a skirt, but everybody else was, so whatever. But then at the end of the night, the guy who ran it, not my friend's aunt, but her husband, he was a pervert. He told me twice, I feel like you're wasting your talents. So he wanted me to dance, basically. I was 22 at the time. And I didn't want to do that. But he was like, if you want a waitress, it's going to be about 2 weeks before we can get you on the schedule. However, if you want to dance, we can get you back in tomorrow night. And I really didn't want to do it, but I was like, let me talk to my boyfriend about it. Now, I could say I was hoping for the best, but to be honest, I knew Jeff. And Jeff doesn't give a fuck. He does not care. He's fine with it. So I'm in this predicament. I've run away. Everybody's worried about me, threatening to call the cops on me because like I just left everything and went to St. Louis. And you know, I was a dancer for one night. I was a stripper for one whole night. I think it was a weekday. I didn't make shit. I had to get some old man private dance. It went against, now I judge no one that does this. Absolutely not. But for me and like my soul, it was going against everything I felt like I should be doing, or I just was not okay with it. But I did it. And then I came back to the apartment and I bawled and squalled my eyes out. I called my mom and she's like, just quit. Mind you, at this point, I am still Christian. So, my boyfriend's roommate at the time, who was also doing heroin, turns out neither one of them were going to school and working their jobs like they told their parents. The other guy's family was footing the bill. They were running heroin from St. Louis to other places and back, sometimes twice a day. And they never woke up before too. So it was really, really awful, like the whole thing. But the roommate was like, you know, the cure for a really bad day, you know what that is, right? Put the needle in your arm. And I'd never done that. In fact, I told them before I moved up there, I didn't want to see it. Like, please, that's all I ask. I don't want to see that. So that lasted a whole day before they started just doing it all the time. And so I was watching them shoot up constantly. I was snorting it, but I wasn't taking it that far. But when he said that, and I was in that state of mind, and I just felt defeated. I was like, what did I just do? Why did I'm wearing shorts for today. You know, like, I really just did, you know, it's, for me, it wasn't something I wanted to do, and I think that was the biggest thing. Like, I got pressured into it, and it made me feel some type of way, especially being Christian. So I did it. I shot up heroin for the first time. I didn't. My friend did. I didn't know how to do it. Or the roommate. I said, just don't give me too much. You know, obviously, I know I'm not stupid. I know you can die. So I put 3, if you know what caps are. Capsules is a decent amount in there. But to them, it wasn't shit. And I passed out for 2 hours straight. And I remember Jeff, the guy that I was dating again, he wasn't even the same person, checking on me every once in a while. I was out, but I was like laying on him. And he was like, hey, all right, you alive? I was fine. Took a few more days. I didn't want to do it again. I was like, fuck that. But eventually I did, and I did less, and that's what got me hooked on the needle. So anyway, it was after that I met Terry, and, you know, told him the same thing I told Adam, but more like vehemently, like, I'm going to do whatever the hell I want to do. And that's the whole thing. You can be my boyfriend if you want to. That was my whole thing with my relationships. They would want to be with me, but I knew that I wasn't going to want to even try to have a healthy relationship. I wanted to do what I wanted to do. And then drugs also fed into that, but I would tell them all, you can be my boyfriend if you want, but you don't ever get to tell me what to do at all. You don't get to get mad at the things that I do. I won't cheat on you, but I'm going to do whatever I want to do. And if you can be okay with that, okay, we can be together. And so, yeah, that was me and Terry. And then I broke up with him. And what's really crazy is that guy, you know, I said he was the biggest bitch. He never even tried me. Never got, I mean, I'm not going to say he never got mad at me, but it never came out as anger. He knew better. You know, just fucking leave. Because in the very, very beginning, when we first started talking, I was at his apartment, and we were fighting, we were arguing. And I was in the other room, and I heard a loud crash. So I'm running there, and I'm like, what in the world? And the glass table was flipped upside down and shattered. And I look at him, and I'm like, what the fuck you just do? And I guess by how I looked at him, I don't know, I must have a look. Because my friend Jessie said she's afraid to see me mad. But I'm never mad like that. But anyway. And he's like, I don't know. I think I just fell over. And I'm like, so that big ass glass table, it just fell over. Just knocked itself completely upside down over and shattered. It's like, okay. I said, listen here, okay? And I want you to listen to me very closely because I mean every word of this. So you have to take me seriously. If you ever try something like that with me again, this will be the last time you see me. I have absolutely no problem walking out that door and never seeing you again. Never speaking to you, never speaking your name. So do not try me because I'll just fucking leave. I do not have to put up with your anger and your temper tantrums. You know, I learned that with my ex-husband. Some women process trauma differently. Some of them get very timid. They get to where they don't like to be around loud noises or, you know, and they feel uncomfortable around men. Me, I'm like, come at me, bitch. Even if I see a woman, you know, or a man, you know, it goes both ways. You don't fucking, you know, you don't hit somebody, period. There's other ways to resolve things other than physical violence. That's so, like, asinine. But anyway, the crazy thing about Terry and how he was with me, because he knew better after that. That was early on. He never tried it again, no matter what I did. And I did a bunch of stuff he didn't like all the time. He don't let me take his car. I wouldn't get back for a couple days. Wouldn't answer his phone calls. I mean, I gave him every reason to freak out. about 2 years ago, I think it was, his current wife, he got married. He got his girl pregnant, married her. She calls me. I forget how she even said she got my number. It was so weird. And she tells me that Terry has been beating her and that she's pregnant. So this piece of shit, this insecure, small dick piece of shit, is beating his pregnant girlfriend. Why? Because he fucking can't. Like, So she asked me what she should do. Well, I mean, first of all, like, I didn't even know where to start. I told her, that he kind of tried that with me, tested me, and I said, fuck you, and not again for over 2 years did I see any sign like that. And she's pregnant with his child. So, like, I was kind of just angry at the whole situation. Like, how dare you? What the hell's wrong with you? And I talked to her a few times. She was going to leave him or at least take a break. She was pregnant with this kid. Bless her heart. And they're married now. And she recently has, it's probably more like a year ago, has apologized for reaching out to me, saying he's a good man. Like, she needed to convince me or something. Like, so it was scary. That was that relationship. So, at this point, I'm doing hard drugs. I'm doing them intravenously. I'm doing whatever heroin I can get, fentanyl, which is dangerous, very dangerous, especially to put in your veins. Oxycontin, morphine, Dilaudid, anything I could put in a needle and shove into my veins, basically, at this point. And I was at the point that I was dependent, physically, mentally, whatever. I would go through severe withdrawals. I always say I'm not afraid of shit, because I'm really not. There's nothing in this world I'm really afraid of. Besides snakes freak me out, and then detox. Like, withdrawal is horrible. If you know, you know. So, just to get away from Terry, because he wouldn't go away. I kept breaking up with him. I kept giving a stupid engagement ring back that I didn't want, but he wouldn't go away. So I knew at this point, I have a problem. I have a serious problem. I mean, you should see my arms. I mean, you can't tell, obviously it's been a lot of years now, but I mean, I can remember looking at my arms and just my body and where I had stuck myself so many times and just cried over it because I'm like, what am I doing to myself? Like, it's like I couldn't believe it, but I was still doing it. Lennon, I'm doing a video. Please be quiet. And I can remember, like, on my bed on my knees, like, he's laying there, and I'm like, look at this. Look at this. So it was bad. So I decided to go to treatment, right? Of my own accord. Like, courts didn't make me go or anything. I decided to go. And it was this little treatment center. It's now an all-male treatment center, but it was unisex back then. We all had the same common room, but, like, the male and female hallways were, like, different, like, adjacent to each other. So I went there in December of 2010, I believe, because I was there for Christmas and New Year's. So, it went into 2011. And before I went, I had to go to the hospital to have my blood drawn. I have to check for, like, Hep C and AIDS and, I don't know, God knows what. They have to draw your blood. And so they took me to the local hospital, one of the smaller hospitals, and they had at least 3 or 4 phlebotomists try to hit my veins. And they couldn't, and I knew they weren't going to be able to. I let them try, even though I hate, like, when I mean, I don't want any needles touching me now, period, but, like, especially someone else that had control over it, like, I was not okay with that, especially when I knew, like, I said a couple times, can you just give it to me? Just give it to me, please. Like, stop digging in my arm. So then the head phlebotomist comes in, like, the boss lady. Well, turns out, and I was there with my mom. She was watching all this happen, crying. Turns out this lady had worked for my parents when they owned a carpet store when she was like 18. So, like, she saw me as a 2, 3, 4-year-old. She saw me as, a baby, a toddler. And she wasn't able to do it either. They weren't able to get my blood that night. She pulled my mom aside. That's exactly what she said. She said, Lisa, she's breaking my heart. She's too smart. She has found every accessible vein that she can access, and she has destroyed it. She said there's only one other way we can take the blood, but if she figures out that she can shoot drugs up there, she's gonna kill herself. And my mom tells me this. Now, I'm not stupid. I know exactly what the fuck she's talking about. She's talking about this little vein in my neck. Like, I've done it. I don't want to die. Like, I'm not trying to do that. That wasn't why I was doing it. You know, I just prefer not to do that. You know, it's kind of a last resort thing, but you know, it's a whole different life when you're that dependent on something like that is so dangerous. It's scary, you know. So I go into treatment, and I really want to get better. You know, that's why I'm there. They won't give you anything there. Now they give you maintenance meds, nothing. I couldn't even get a Tylenol, and I had the worst migraine of my life one night. So, you know, I detox completely. Other people are detoxing from, you know, the same thing, just as bad, you know, so it's not, we'd see each other out in the common room. And then in walks this guy, and he was fucking cute. He had the most gorgeous eyes I had ever seen in my life. Dirty blonde hair, it was cut short, but you could tell it was curly. And he was just stunning looking to me. He was young. He was 5 years younger than me. He was only 19. He hadn't turned 20 yet. I was 24. Now, when you meet in a setting like that, they preach at you, do not start something in treatment. And don't. Because I'm a walking testimonial. You should never do this. But, like I said, I was full of myself. I was full of ego, you know. So, you know, I'm different. I'm going to be different. So I meet this guy in there. And he really likes me too, you know. It's just, like, oh, when we get out, you know, we're going to meet up, blah, blah, blah. Neither of us were really knowing, you know, you can't know if the other's really serious. You get out of there, life happens. Well, I got out first. 2 weeks later, he calls me. We get together. Well, the thing about Josh, his name is Josh. The thing about Josh is what my mom would call a master manipulator. She says I am that too. I used to be. I'm not anymore. I combat that with blatant honesty. But, we even called him Baby Josh because he was so young. But he confessed fairly early on. We'd hung out a few times, but one night he was like, I never planned on staying sober. I also found out that he had been to rehab, like, I want to say, this was in like 2010, you know, circa 2010. So that was like over 13 years ago. That was like at least his 9th rehab trip at age 19. Like, he started shooting up at 14. He some serious stuff going on. He never had a chance really, you know, to develop into a healthy adult. So, you know, as much as he pisses me off, you know, I have to give that to him. So he didn't plan on staying sober. And one night, because I've been doing hair for 17 years now. I just retired like last year. 17 years of doing hair. So I had cash in my wallet, like probably $300-$400 cash from, you know, being at work. And he tells me he can find heroin. And it was a weak moment for me. We both had the same drug of choice. And I was like, where? And then we had to be like, do you do it like this? Because I do it like, you know. And both of us, a couple of fucking heroin junkies. So I went from there. We dated for like 2 years. It was so bad. I've never met a worse addict before in my entire life. Never. He did things to me that I wouldn't do to my worst enemy, like as far as like leaving me, cheating on me, stuff behind my back, lying, stealing, you name it. He fucking did it. Now, I hold no animosity towards him for that. I've forgiven him for everything that happened, you know, but he is a person that gets in that state, and he can't even smoke weed. I smoke a lot of weed, you know, but I also had a total mindset shift. He just recently, like within the last 6 months to a year, went to rehab twice again. You know, and I've been sober for years. I don't even know my sober date. It's been a really long time. But 2 years, I got pregnant. I was addicted to heroin with this guy, also addicted to heroin, who, you know, when he was in active addiction, turned into a complete psychopath. You know, made me cry all the time. I mean, he just did horrible things to me. Like, I won't even tell my daughter. She asks me all the time what he did to me. I'm like, I'm not talking about it. I'm not going to go into it. But let's just say the worst thing that a partner can do to their other partner, he did it to me all the time. Like, it was so bad. In fact, I have a felony charge because he bribed me to take him to go get some drugs one time in St. Louis, and we got pulled over. They questioned us separately, and, you know, they weren't even mine. They technically were not mine. But it was in my car, and I knew about it, so I took partial responsibility. It turns out he said they were all mine. So this is one small example. There are a million. So I got pregnant, and I was like, oh my God, I was 27. It's like I was young, but I was obviously having some issues. So Um, I went to see an OB. This guy was a complete fucking dick. After the first appointment, I was like, no way in hell am I gonna deal with this guy for the next 9 months and have him deliver my baby. He said something derogatory, so I was like, nope. They had one other OB in the office, happened to be Dr. Bishop. Now, I love Dr. Bishop. He is still my OBGYN. I go to see him for my annual. He'll be like, you can still have babies, right? We can hang out for the next 9 months. He's got like 3 sets of twins, like 9 kids total or something. He's got long, curly, gray hair down to his waist. Love this man. He happened to be to specialize at that point in time in women that were opioid dependent. So you can't give a pregnant woman like Suboxone, and most people know what that is. And you can't give methadone because that is an actual opiate, but they can have Subutex. It doesn't have the naloxone in it. So that's what he put me on. It was still in the early stages. Like, they've been using it for a while, but no long-term studies were done. I don't think he really knew, and that's why I was able to forgive him for this. Because I asked 3 separate times, like, is it going to affect the baby? Is my baby going to go through withdrawal or whatever? Is it going to hurt her? And he's like, no. If it is, it'll be very mild. If it is, nothing to worry about. 3 separate times I asked. Well, my pregnancy was pretty normal. I obviously stopped doing heroin. I was sick my first trimester. She was big. She was almost 8 pounds when she was born. So, I had to kind of like live a normal life, get my act together. My body was freaking me out. It was changing. Little boobs out here, ankles. But I was on the Subutex and it was helping. But I went to give birth to her. They induced me. I would never do that again. I had back labor too. But, when she was born, everything was fine for like the first day and a half until they had already released me. They were waiting on some papers to release her to let's go home that day, and they took her temperature and she had a slight fever, and they say there's no reason a newborn should have a fever. Turns out she was in withdrawal. We spent the next week in the NICU. It was absolutely fucking heartbreaking. There was my brand new, newborn, precious, innocent baby, and I had done this. Knowingly or not, I did it. Her poop was so watery and acidic that we had this special, like, super thick, like, butt balm that the hospital gave us. It was the only thing that would sort of help because it couldn't keep it off her butt. It was just constant. It was like water, and she just cried and cried and cried and didn't sleep. And they finally put her in the NICU in the back room where it's dark. And I just, because I know the feeling of it and I hate it so much, it's like the thing I despise the most, knowing that this baby I just made, that I just brought into this world, is feeling that way. It was such a punch in the gut. And like, all the nurses treated me like shit. Like, looked at me like I was a piece of shit. It was all my fault. And it was, but in my defense, I didn't know. I was told otherwise, but it is what it is. I was on heroin. I had to figure it out, and I did. And it worked out. So me and Lennon's dad, Josh, we tried to do the family thing for like, about a year, a little under a year. He was working at the boat factory. He was staying sober. We were both on Subutex. He was staying sober as far as I knew. He's really sneaky. So, I was the stay-at-home mom when she was really little, and he was working at the boat factory, and the bills weren't a lot, so it was fine. We were doing good for us. Really, better, because we have a newborn. Well, then one morning I wake up, and I walk into the computer room at the time. We had a desktop computer that if you were on Facebook and you didn't log out, it would just be up, and if you had chat, it would just be like sitting there. And I would never snoop through a guy's stuff. I never have. I will know before I need to snoop, and if I don't trust you, then I'm not gonna be with you. But his Facebook is up with a chat, and he'd been trying to get news from this girl from his hometown. So I call him in there, and I'm like, Josh, come here. He's like, what? I'm like, come here. He walks in, and I'd had it at this point. I was like, call your dad. He needs to come pick you up. You're moving out today. And he sees it, and he's like, oh my God, Willie, I don't even remember that. Like, you don't remember it? He's like, we took like 22 Blue Xanax last night. Like, oh, that makes it better. No. It makes it way worse, actually. Call your dad, get the fuck out. And Lennon was my daughter, Lennon Grace, born 9/20/12. She is a force to be reckoned with. But anyway, he had to leave. Josh had to go, and he did. And so he was depressed. His addiction likes to change faces. So this time he went from about 160 pounds, soaking wet, about 5'10", to 320 pounds. He ate and drank himself almost to death, to the point of having to have a double hip replacement at age 29, directly related to his use of drugs and alcohol, just over the years. So, that was done. Not much time had gone on, and I met a guy named Andy. And Andy was different. He was very normal. As normal as it gets. I cut his hair. He was local, but, I cut his hair a few times. The time he had a short, just regular 2 on the sides, scissors on top. It was a little curly. He wore glasses. He was just kind of cute and dorky, He was a truck driver, so he was gone 5 days a week. And so, he had a good job. Didn't, do any drugs. He was a musician. He played music. And I was like, this guy would be good for me. Now, I always intuitively know, it's not like I thought, oh, he's the one. I mean, maybe I tried to convince myself about that early on, but, so we got together, and he changed a lot. Actually, I put that man through hell, that poor guy. I actually do feel really bad. I stabbed that man once with a pair of hair cutting shears. It was not good. Because at this point, my daughter was very young, and I was a lot better. I'm not going to say I was better yet, completely. Because, I was not perfect. I was still doing things sometimes. I was not, doing the real bad thing, the intravenous thing. But, Lennon, go. He put up with me. He didn't tell me what to do. He wasn't really the type that would do that anyway. In fact, he did some stuff with me that I'm really surprised that he did. But he loved me. He truly loved me unconditionally. And he loved Lennon unconditionally. He came around when she was a year old. That man, Andy Sanders, he's an earth angel. He came into my life at the perfect time. He's still a part of my life. We broke up when Lennon was about 3 or 4. We were together for 3 years. As a couple. But I knew, it wasn't going to last. So eventually I had to end it. As no reason. He didn't do anything wrong. I mean, never did anything wrong. Hardly. But, I just knew he wasn't the one. And so it was only fair to end it. But because he was gone 5 days a week driving a truck, he didn't want to have to pay for an apartment for just a weekend or live with his dad just a weekend. So he stayed my roommate, which kind of worked out for everybody. He made good money. He helped me with the bills. He was only home on the weekends. And when he was home, he was Lennon's dad. That's who she knew as her dad. And so he would want to spend time with her. And if I wanted to go out on the weekend, I could. I didn't usually, but I could, because he was happy to watch her. And there was nothing physical between us. In fact, I was very careful, not to put off any kind of sexual vibe or anything too revealing, because I didn't want to spark that. But we're still close. He still gets Lennon, every weekend. Not every weekend, but he gets her on the weekends a lot. He talks to her. He does dad things with her. And he takes her to Walmart. He buys her Robux. He's a dad. He doesn't pay child support. He's not obligated to do that. So anyway, we were together 3 years. We stayed roommates for several years, longer than we were even together. And then he just moved out about 2 years ago. Because I just needed that. He needed that. Both of us. It was just time. Because if we did want to have real relationships at one point in time, that dynamic had to change. Even though we were strangers in the same, not strangers, we would talk, but it was always about some politics or some we weren't friends. We're not even friends on Facebook or Instagram or anything, which is weird, but we're not. It's we exist on different planets and under the same roof. But because I feel energy the way that I do, it was it just kind of grated at me. So eventually he did move out. It took some convincing. And he did. And for the first time ever, I was I want to support myself and my daughter myself. I want to, I just want to try it on my own. I want to try to do it without anybody's help, without the help of a man, without feeling I am fucked up. Obviously I have to have drugs and I'm not responsible. And, these guys would cater to me and take care of me. I need to do it on my own. I need to grow a pair and do it. So, you know, I did that, and it has been good. It's been really good. So let's rewind for a minute back to when I was around when I was 27, right after Lennon was born. I read a book by a local guy, and he was actually on my dad's pool league. Him and his brother wrote it. It was called The Hour We Least Expected. And mind you, I was raised Christian my whole life. And so very like embedded Christian beliefs. And so this book was basically, it showed with proof, you'd have to reference the Bible, which I did, and so did my mom, read it at the same time, where it proved that God doesn't send people to hell after they die. That's not a thing. Now, it's been a long time since I read the book, but I think they're going to reprint it. I actually have a copy still, but The Hour We Least Expected. So I read that, and so did my mom, and referenced the Bible, and both of us are like, oh my God. Because we're both extremely intellectual people, you know, as far as like analyzation and stuff, and we're like, whoa. So, okay, so if this isn't true, then what else isn't true? They're not, you know, telling us. It turns out a lot, like a whole lot. But that's what sparked it. So I was like, okay, things are not as they seem, not as I thought they were. That right there was enough to spark it. And from there, I have been a straight seeker. If there's ever the definition of a seeker, I spend so much of my time immersed in all these topics and like study and practice of like just finding all the answers to everything that ever existed. I mean, I know it's not realistic, but it's still like something that I feel the compulsion to do. And so around when I was 27, I'm 38 now, so it's been like 11 years. You know, I wouldn't say I renounced Christianity. It wasn't really like that. My beliefs changed. I stopped believing things just because I was told them, and I started researching for myself. I started to develop my own discernment, and my discernment did get extremely strong. You know, I have gifts. I don't like to label anything. I don't even like to say what they are, but like I will say one is discernment. I can feel in my being if something is truth or not. And it's a helpful tool. But, you know, and it helps especially when you are a seeker and you're looking for information. Especially early on, because there wasn't a lot. Back in 2010-ish, you know, 9, 10, there was not a lot about spirituality on the internet. There's one magazine called The Elephant Journal, and it had articles about spirituality. I remember one of the stories was called Astral Sex, and just stuff, you know, and it's very fascinating to me because you couldn't find stuff like that to read. It's not like today where there's like gurus on every freaking corner, or like life coaches, spiritual coaches. It was hard to find, you know, information, hard to find people that are trustworthy to listen to. So, you know, I found Trevor Hall, the artist Trevor Hall, and most of you, if you know me, and if you don't know me, you'll get to know this. He is something else. I believe Trevor Hall is a divine being. He has an energy about him that is different. It sets him apart. And because I know many other artists that sing the exact same kind of music with the exact same type of lyrical content, he has something, like he's a high-ranking spiritual being. I can feel it. You can hear it. You can see it. You can sense it. Like it's something otherworldly about that guy. So, I found him way back in the day, you know, and like since then, I remember staying up till midnight for his Chapter of the Forest album to drop, and he helped to guide me through like, especially the early years of my spiritual journey where I didn't have a lot of places to go for information. I didn't, you know, I had to just kind of like follow my own intuition and the little bit that I could find and practice. And that music, something about it spoke to a part of my soul that like had been hungry for something that I'd been missing. And it was really hard to put my finger on for a long time because it was like I could sense it, but I couldn't really grasp it. I couldn't experience it. I had all of these intellectual concepts in my head, but I had no experiential, you know, experience of it. Like it was a concept. And so I can think of so many things now. That was 11 years ago. It started off as a concept, and I remember wondering, like an asking spirit, like, okay, so at what point do things go from being just an idea, a concept, something you understand intellectually, to an actual reality in your life experience? And the truth is, it depends whenever it's supposed to happen, but it does happen. Sometimes you don't even realize it till afterwards, but there are so many things that I used to only understand on an intellectual level, and I wanted more than anything to to understand, through experience. And it just wasn't the right time yet, because, what happens is you experience it and it becomes just a part of you. It becomes, you embody that. It becomes part of your essence, but you also can't shut it off. So you go seeking, you go practicing, you go doing all these things, asking for knowledge and asking for guidance and asking for gifts and all this. You're going to get it. You seek it long enough, you're going to get it. But here's the thing. You don't get to pick and choose what you get. You don't get to pick and choose what spirit, with the divine, the intelligent source of everything, is going to see fit for you as an individual, what your purpose, whatever purpose you have here. You don't exactly know how those gifts are going to come out. And sometimes mine come out in really fucking weird ways. And I'm like, really? Like, was that necessary? Like, I get a lot of downloads. And sometimes they're really random. And I don't even see how they're relevant. And sometimes, even if they're stupid, they are later. But sometimes I'm still like, what was that about? It's like Pandora's box. Once you open it, it's hard to shut. So I started, so in 2020, oh, sorry, I'm almost done. 2020, leading up to 2020, about 6 months. So that's when I came off the Subutex. I hadn't done any drugs or taken anything or been on anything quite some time, but I had stayed on the Subutex, which is just maintenance medicine. It does not make you feel high. All it does is it prevents you from going through withdrawal. So you're basically taking one or tablet or however many you're supposed to take every day, just so you don't get sick, which is kind of bullshit. It doesn't feel like it's doing a damn thing to you. You don't realize till you get off that it actually was clouding you a little. So I stayed on that forever. I weaned myself from 3 pills down to 1. And I told my doctor in December of 2019, I said, I'm going to be back next month. I'm going to wean myself off. He's like, in a month? Because that's a really long half-life. I'm like, yeah, I'm going on a quarter a week. It'll be fine. I do that all the time with meds. Like, it'll be fine. And he's like, okay. He's like, can I help you anyway? And I'm trying to think. I'm like, I don't know. I was like, maybe, like, because I don't know how long it's going to take. Like, this is normally you give me for a script. Maybe give me this and then half. Like, so like a script and a half just in case. And then I won't give him back. So he did that for me. Well, I guess I wasn't really thinking because I was only giving myself a month. That's 4 weeks. I was going down a quarter a week. I went through a couple pills. That was it. And then I had a whole full bottle of Subutex. But people actually sell that stuff on the streets. But I carried mine around with me in my purse. I was fully in detox. Now, mind you, on maintenance meds, they have a long half-life. So whereas heroin withdrawal would be really intense and maybe last like 3 to 7 days tops. And I was told this ahead of time about Suboxone, or Subutex. I wasn't really giving it a whole lot of influence in my brain. That it would take me 4 to 5 months to detox from it, which is terrifying to think about. I couldn't even afford to think about that. Wouldn't do it otherwise. Guess how long it took. In total, almost 5 months. And I did take some kratom in the beginning to kind of help, and it's not as bad as like opiate detox. But I did. I went 4 weeks and 2 days, and I think January 23rd of 2020 was my last dose of Subutex, which it's now been almost 4 years ago, but it doesn't feel that long ago, and it was like the last to go. It was like the one thing that I've been hanging on for a really long time. But about 6 months leading up, I know I'm all over the place. I'm tired, but leading up to 2020, I felt like I was losing my mind. I felt like I would tell everybody who would listen, and I was very isolated. But Andy, when he was around, I would tell my mom, anybody. I feel like something big is gonna happen. I feel like I'm resetting. I feel like the whole world is resetting. Like I feel something coming. I can't tell if it's good or bad. I just know it's big, and that's all I got. But I felt like I would talk in circles. But I was also kind of like mildly detoxing. So I thought maybe I'm just kind of crazy. And then they announced COVID. And I was like, oh, fuck. Okay. Because I would also say, I don't know if it's collective or personal. I can't decipher that. That's the way my psychic abilities work usually, like a lot of times. I don't get all of the information all at one time. It comes in different spurts. So I'm like, oh shit. Okay, so that makes sense. All right, COVID. That was a big deal. Well, later on in 2020, everything shut down for like ever. Nothing was open. It was September 2020. Actually, it was August. And this guy talks to me randomly on the internet. I thought he's a professional performer. He looked kind of cute. I knew he wasn't from around here, but he spun fire poi, and I thought that was cool. At that time, I didn't know anybody that did that. Now I know probably 50 people that do. Anyhow, He lives in Colorado currently. I live in Illinois. Turns out he was born, his hometown is an hour away from where I currently live. So, we're just chatting online and we don't know each other from Adam. But he, on a whim, decides he's going to come down for this music festival. It's actually very local. It's 15 minutes from my house. And he's been several times before, but I've never been. So he's going to take me. So he flies from Colorado, misses his flight, has to get another flight, spends all this extra money. But he gets there to me. It was meant to happen. He gets there. We go to this festival. I have no words for what this was like. It was an otherworldly experience. Yes, it was my first festival, so that probably played into it. But also, it was not just that. I've done a lot of spiritual stuff. I've experienced a lot of spiritual stuff. This was like nothing I'd ever experienced. So this guy, he's 9 years younger than me, so he's younger than me. Never met him before. As we were at this festival early, I was watching, people watching, but I was with him and there were people he knew there. I didn't know anybody. So I met my first few friends that I now call family, at that festival. But watching him, his mannerisms, the way he talked, his way with people, it was like looking at myself in a different body that happened to have a penis. That was really trippy. I remember having that thought. I remember where I was at. I remember having that thought and what? Because it was so true. But what? So that weekend was crazy. Like, I mean, it was like almost like we fell head over heels for each other in like a night. Like, by random people would walk up to us, be like, "Are you guys married? Are you guys, like, you guys are such good energy. You should love each other forever." Like, people that didn't even know us. In fact, that's happened every time we were together, which hasn't been many times, but it's very weird, phenomenon type of thing. So I go to this, festival, and this weekend was just like, it was magic. It was crazy. Like, it was like another dimension. And his little brother came too. So I had formed a bond with his very younger little brother. He may be like 21 or 22 now. So we go back to our lives. Colorado catches on fire. Things are crazy there. Long story short, he was young. He lived far away. I think he was afraid of me. I think he was afraid of falling for me, that I was too far away and it was going to be a lot of work and he would rather, he hadn't planned on that, meeting anybody he was interested in and just wanted to go back to his life. He's young. He's a musician, big time musician, all the ladies, whatever. So, I accepted that as whatever. But I realized shortly after it happened, like the actual event happened at the festival, I looked into this concept before. For whatever reason, it resonated with me, but like I'd never experienced it. I had a twin flame experience with this person that I'd never met. It was like me in another body. He mirrored to me all kinds of crazy things about myself, stuff I didn't want to see, stuff that was good. It was very extremely intense, very instantaneous, very, and very psychic, even when we were like not together, not around each other. It was very confusing because, he was living his life and, 14 or 18 hours away, however far it is, doing his own thing. He had a girlfriend at one point. And I'm just like, I'm so particular anyway. I never like anybody, literally never, once every 10 years or something. And like all of a sudden I'm like, I'm like head over heels. I don't even know this guy. And, he can't talk to me. And it's just like, it took me through this whole process. So what the twin flame journey does is it activates you. It activates your spiritual journey. It accelerates it. It's already activated. And so I cannot tell you between 2020 and now, and 2023, September 2023, I'm not even the same person I was 3 years ago that met him at that festival. That's so crazy. Actually, this weekend will be the 3-year anniversary of when that happened. But those first few people I met at that festival with him introduced me to more people and more people. I ended up going to more and more festivals. That's when I started doing aerial hoop. Met lots of amazing people, and I have some amazing friends. I'm still mostly isolated, but I still love them. They're my friends. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. So I gave up my 17-year hair career about a year ago. Very synchronistic, very orchestrated by the universe that I was not supposed to be there and I wasn't supposed to do hair anymore. Question is though, at 38 and having a daughter, being a single mom, okay, what about money now? What do I do? So I read tarot, I do personal readings, I do offer those. I'm hoping to get this YouTube channel going. You know, there's a few other things. You know, I'm an energy healer, a Reiki practitioner, so I do that. You know, I do paid lyric gigs or aerial hoop, you know, like for events and stuff. But I mean, as far as steady income, that's not really a thing right now. And I'm like, I am too old for this. Like, I've already been through this stage of my life, but it's like, Spirit will give us as many dark nights of the soul as we need in order to evolve. And maybe it's the fact that I'm a Taurus sun that is stubborn as fuck, like stubborn, more stubborn than anybody I know. But then a Scorpio rising, which is literal transformation energy, like death and rebirth. And so it's forced me into so many deaths followed by rebirths. I have had so many, you call them ego deaths, a death to my old self, a death to who I believe myself to be, a death to who I was, and then a rebirth and a complete reconstruction of who I was becoming. And I finally at this age, 38, feel like I'm coming into my authenticity. I am more embodied. I'm working with the divine feminine. In fact, the darker aspects, the dark feminine, as of late, because there's a lot of medicine in that. There's a lot of potent power in that, when you understand it correctly. So, you know, I'm just kind of in a space of whatever will be, will be. It's weird to say, like, you know, I just have my shit together, but then all of a sudden I really don't, and I'm not really sure what I'm going to do about it yet. But I do know that I'm supposed to trust. At this point in my spiritual journey, I'm not allowed to. I can't even force myself to do something that is not in alignment with what I'm supposed to do in my purpose. It won't work out for me. So it's kind of a waiting game with the universe of like, hey, you gonna throw me a bone? You gonna let me know what I need to do to make money and live and stuff? But I feel it. I feel things coming up. I have some things coming up, some friends I'm going to see soon that I'm really excited about. I'm going to start posting to this channel, so keep your eye out for the tarot videos that I'm going to post. And please like, follow, share. I would love to see you back here. Sorry this was so rambly. My tarot readings are not like this, but I just really wanted to kind of like, I don't know, just give an overview of my life, you know, and all the transformations I have been through. You know, I went from golden child to, you know, dry addict to, you know, needle junkie to, God, just a long road of like recovery and spiritual seeking for over the past decade. And those things together have been so profound. I can't even tell you. And I can't even tell you how much the last 3 years has accelerated my growth as a person and how different I am now than I was 35 years ago. I mean, I've grown exponentially. My reading has gotten like insane accurate and just flowy. So I'm excited. I'm excited to get back into the channel. I'm excited to connect with you guys. I won't normally be sitting here. I'm just kind of like, I have shorts on this, by the way. I don't know. I don't have to have a table right now for cards, so I figured I'll just sit in the chair. But, yep, if you're still here and you've suffered through that entire thing, thanks for listening. And I hope to see you back here. The next video you'll see will be a tarot reading. I believe I might do a general one and then a, what do we have? Full moon coming up? I should know this, but I'm not sure. I'll definitely do a reading for that, for sure. So the next one will be general and then the moon reading, or the next one might be the moon reading because it's only in like a few days. So anyway, yeah, I am Amber Indigo or Amber Fern, whatever you want to call me. I don't care. Yeah, I'm just a people-loving, easygoing, barefoot hippie who is living life the best way I know how. And just trying to figure out all the answers in the meantime. So that's what I do. And I hope to see you back. And I hope you enjoyed my scattered ADD attempt to tell my life story to you. That is all. Good day. Bye.